I would love to see Daniel if he'd be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he's open to it, I know. I remember just, I mean, all I could do, like, just kind of, again, I can't imagine as a father. I can't imagine what that must feel like.
Yeah.
I can only try to imagine just the pain and the anger that I felt just being in the room
Yeah.
because I walked in and I saw Malachi. Um, and I think at the time, so it was the mom and I think the boyfriend was still there too.
Yeah.
And I can't like
Yeah.
for myself being removed from this
Yeah.
entire situation, like it infuriated me, and it
Yeah.
just I couldn't imagine. That's why like the best thing that I could do was to just pull Daniel out of that room for
Yeah.
a little bit, knowing that it was hard too because he didn't want to be away from the sun.
Yeah.
So I was mindful of that, but
Yeah.
there needed to be some kind of a
A
break.
break.
Um, I just wanted to be able to talk with him, just kind of like man to man, father to father, and
Yeah.
you know, didn't want to pressure, didn't want to push, didn't. I just wanted to, I don't know, like in those moments, like sometimes you just don't really know what you can say or what you can do, and
Right.
I think I asked questions,
Yeah.
and I tried to give as much information, and just again left it to like it's up to you.
Yeah.
Um, but it just says so much about him to be able to still make that decision
Yeah.
because it's tough.
Yes.
Um, I think people worry about too, like especially, I mean, I think with any loved one, but especially children, when people think about donation, they think it's, just the physical part of it of, taking organs. They're not realizing how compassionate that process is too. And
Yeah.
it's, when I first started doing this, my daughter was 4 years old. And I remember the first pediatric case that I had was a 4-year-old little girl in a similar
Yeah.
situation. And she looked just like my daughter. And um, I found it really hard. I found it really hard just to even ask. And it was just the mom. And the mom said no. And I just said, okay. And I walked away because I was feeling that in that moment. And then realizing later that I kind of um, felt like I let her down because I should have had more of a conversation with her. But what it did though is it opened up my mind to it because I could imagine myself if that was my daughter in that situation and somebody asked me, like, when it comes to organ donation, sure, take,
Yeah.
whatever you want of mine, but my daughter, no. Like I would kind of envision myself just kind of like throwing myself on top of her on the bed and like, you're not
Yeah.
touching her. I don't want her to be cut open.
Right.
Um, I don't know how long I held on to that thought, that concept. Seems like it was a long time, but I don't think it was.
Yeah.
Until I finally realized, but wait a minute, if my daughter needed a transplant
Yeah.
to live, I would I would give anything to have her be cut open.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the little girl, the 2-year-old little girl that received Malachi's heart, had the same incision that Malachi had.
Yeah.
It's no different.
Mhm.
Um, and to think of what that means, and again, we talked about like perception, providing like a perception to people.
Yeah.
Um, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I think I've learned the most from like the families that I work with. I had this really great experience with a woman who lost her husband to a stroke, and she gave me the most beautiful perception of what organ donation was. After she had said no, mind you, um, it was her husband Hank, and they had been married. They were high school sweethearts. They got married right out of high school. He went to the military. He served, his few years. They never had children. She couldn't have kids, but they lived in the same neighborhood. He had just retired, and she said even though we didn't have children, like Hank was um, the guy that was always helping everybody. And when she talked about him, she said Hank was the kind of guy that give you the shirt off his back, and he was the one that always fixed the kids' bikes in the neighborhood. He was the handyman. It was always just very giving.
Yeah.
But when donation was brought up to her by the doctor, he said, because he was declared brain dead also. He had a stroke, and she couldn't really understand what that meant. And so the doctor went in for a really, really quick update. He's brain dead. Um, she says, what happens next? Well, you take him off the ventilator unless you want to donate his organ. And she said no. So I asked the doctor, do you mind if I talk to her? So then, I explained brain death to her so that, she would
Yeah.
understand, because I think she felt that she was taking him off of life support when he was already declared
Right.
dead. So kind of cleared that up. And then we talked about Hank, and she said that he was the kind of guy to give you the shirt off his back. So then when I was able to present, a donation, what it was, she said, oh yeah, he would definitely want to do that.
Hmm.
She just had a little more information
Yes.
and perception, right? So once we had finished kind of going over paperwork and everything, she said, okay, remind me again. She goes, what would have happened if I didn't donate his organs? I said, well, you would just have to decide when you were going to take him off the ventilator. And she said, well, what happens? What does that look like? I said, well, usually what I see is families will, gather at the bedside, they hold the patient's hand, they basically pull the tube and they wait for the heart to stop beating, and you're usually watching the monitor
Yeah.
and watching those blips kind of slow down until it flatlines. And she said, well, that sounds harsh.
Mm.
She says, and tell me again what happens when you take his organs. I said, well, he stays on the ventilator. Um, the incision is done. His heart will actually be stopped by the surgeon's hands. And if the surgeon is taking the heart for transplant, the heart will go with that surgeon to the transplant center and so on with the
Right.
other organs. And for some reason, I had done this thing with my hands. It was like the heart. It was like the
Uh-huh.
heart was in my hands, and did this thing. And she said, "Oh, so it's not like a total death."
Oh.
She said. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "I don't know. I just when I think of whenever you think of death, or life, like there's always this light, right?
Hmm.
People always talk about a light. And for me, I just when you explain that, I just imagine, Hank's beating heart is light, and instead of his light going out forever, it's going to shine in someone else.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And that's exactly what Malachi is doing.
Yeah.
He's shining.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
And I just thought it was such a beautiful perception of it.
Hmm.
It's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And it's also helped a lot of families.
It's those little morsels of
Yeah.
beauty that we get
Yeah.
that help us carry us to the next day.
Yeah.
I know, before this happened, when I thought of organ donation, I was like, oh, it's morbid. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it, right? And then this happened. And the fact that my son chose, you know, reversed his decision and chose to donate, this story could have been very different if he didn't. It would have ended there. But, Malachi continues to live, with every new adventure that his recipients have, it just, he's still there. He's still out there. The 9 month old that received his liver, her body rejected it. But at least he carried her so that she could receive the second transplant. So for us, it's like, he's still doing great things, and she's carrying him along for the ride of a lifetime, and we look forward to seeing her next adventure, and we're happy for her, and the other recipients, we're happy for them, and we know that I know for a fact I'm going to see my baby. I'm going to see my baby. Today is just one day closer
Yeah.
to that reunion, to see my baby Kai, and to have um, him back in my arms. I look forward to that day, and when that day comes, it's going to be like there's been no time has passed without him. So that's definitely my hope. One day to be able to do that, to have him again. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing your
You're
story.
very welcome. Thank you for having me.
I don't get tired of hearing it.
I don't get tired of telling it.
Yeah. No, that's good.
It's important.
Yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity to meet face to face the heart recipient, but the fact that our families are so connected, it's like we hope for that one day, when it's the right time. We'll embrace that, and we've we've known their identity from the very beginning, which was incredible. Within 24 hours, we knew of her identity. But that was just a friend of our family said, Rachel, you need to get on your computer and look at this blog that he had come across. And it was of a 2-year old little girl waiting for a heart. And it was a blog that her family was doing. And I told him, don't reach out to the family. We're not allowed to do that. It's too soon. This is all very fresh. After hearing testimony in the preliminary trial, uh, I came home to receive a letter from the little girl's mom that said, we received your letter, and we knew all along that it was Malachi. Um, we had a feeling that it was Malachi, and that was true. So our worlds collided, and it was just confirmation of what we knew. I think at that point, God was giving us comfort, knowing that because we knew nothing about organ donation at the time, and to be able to read her story to transplant was difficult. And I'm thinking, as a parent, to give over your child for a heart transplant, that's difficult enough as in itself. And I can't even imagine what they went through. And to be able to, see her post transplant, and she was walking the halls of the pediatric ICU, and exiting the hospital and being able to go home, it was just wow. Their story continues. I never knew the other side of the story because I'm a donor family. But meeting recipients, I learned that their struggle continues. It's an ongoing thing. I thought my family had the hardest part because we had to give up our child. But then learning of a recipient and all the things that they endure, it's like, wow, that's an ongoing thing. So, I'm blessed to know both sides of the story, and to know her journey, to know the kidney recipient's journey. Um, it gives me more appreciation to the beauty of organ donation.
Yeah, and kind of to what you had said earlier, that his story could have stopped
Yeah.
there, but that little girl's story could have stopped right there too.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
It's just unbelievable.